and welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have, and it's been too long, Rick Wilson, co-founder of Lincoln Project. You see him all the time on cable news, doing a great job. Also, the best-selling, #1 New York Times best-selling author of the book Running Against the Devil, A Plot to Save America from Trump and Democrats from Themselves, which I think might be getting more relevant, and we're going to need another updated version or a new version. So, Rick, welcome back.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate it. Great to be back with you.
So,
go ahead. It seems timely, but I may be starting another book here in the next little bit. So
I think you're going to have to. So let's talk we'll get to Trump. We'll slither down to that level. But Ron disaster kicks off the event, doesn't go well. But what is the message that you take as a former Republican strategist that he did this with Elon Musk on Twitter, despite the fact it didn't work out? But what was the real goal here with him?
Look, there is for a long time, there's been this separate media bubble for the Republican and MAGA candidates and voters. And that bubble was largely defined by Fox News at night and Facebook. And, you know, it all sort of ran down from the pyramid of Fox News. There is now a sort of period of chaos in that ecosystem because Tucker is out. Fox is in a little bit of weird chaos right now. And so Elon holding the cards at Twitter looks like a way to get into to beam it right into the crazy audience that he really, really needs to communicate with. And the downside for him on that was anybody who's ever done a Twitter Spaces knows it's a shit show, knows it's a complete train wreck. And even Elon can't like magically hand wave away its technical inadequacies and insufficiencies. So he decided to do it that way, in part to also do something where where his people could be posting links for fundraising and donations. So that was sort of, I think, the explanation for it. And he is, of course, he likes to be behind a screen or behind a curtain or behind a door, so he doesn't have to ever interact with real people. He's not a guy who likes the human race. He doesn't like emotions and conversations. And folks, if you're only listening to this, I'm air quoting the hell out of it.
Right. So does the fact, look, Fox News might regain their footing. They have in the past, but
sure,
since Tucker's gone, the ratings of prime time, the bottom has fallen out. It really is, half the audience in 8 p.m. than they used to get. And Hannity's been impacted greatly. Does that, if that were to continue, say that it's really a diffused audience, people went to Newsmax, people just go other places, does that affect the GOP 2024 race for president?
Well, look, the normative power of Fox was completely powerful for a very long time. But here's the thing, the breakup doesn't push those voters into sane or objective or normal areas. It pushes them into crazier and crazier areas. So it's not just OAN or Newsmax. It's also stuff out on Telegram channels that we don't even pay attention to or know about, on Discord, on Rumble, on all this sort of like crazy super MAGA nationalist demimonde of websites and channels and sources that make Tucker Carlson look like Edward R. Murrow.
So it's more frightening. Well, when they left here, it's not good. But I wonder if it affects the messaging. I mean, because Tucker was like the choir leader of this chorus, and he would almost set the tone a lot for a lot of the messaging, from what I understand from people who are media analysts, for even talk radio. Like Tucker talks about something, or Hannity, and their audience is wide enough or large enough to impact that. Now that's kind of gone. And it almost seems, I imagine there's competition on the right to be the new Tucker, the new leader.
There really is. And look, Tucker Carlson had an advantage over a lot of them. Tucker is evil, but not stupid. A lot of them are evil and stupid. So he's a better entertainer because he's got a sharper intellect to drive the evil stuff he wanted to pump out. And he understands, in a way that a lot of them don't, exactly how to make a compelling argument for the unacceptable, for the nationalism and populism and anti-Semitism and anti-immigrants stuff and anti-LGBT stuff. And he makes it sound not like the usual sort of grunting craziness. He makes it sound like, I'm just looking out for the working guy. And he was a skillful player in that space. And I think the other people on the network are not the same caliber of people. Jesse Waters is dumb and evil. That guy's legitimately like dumber than a sack of hair. He is a performing monkey who has learned a trick or two on how to go to perform for that audience, but there's no like intellectual cohesiveness or framework or mental acuity at all.
I will not disagree with you. I'm chatting with Rick Wilson. I've only met Jesse once. I was on his show years ago. We talked to the green room. Seemed like a nice guy, but not that sharp. Just like a nice guy. Just like,
Yeah, I'm sure he's a pleasant guy in person, and I'm sure there are things he knows plenty of stuff about, but it's not going to have the same oomph as a Tucker Carlson. And you can't add enough mayonnaise to that chicken shit to turn it into chicken salad.
So look, is there anything Lincoln Project, do you plan, if you can share it, I'm not trying to get you to give anything away, but let's look at 2016, the Bernie-Hillary divide was certainly amplified by the right. Is there anything we can do to amplify a DeSantis-Trump divide if that race gets closer, or even if it doesn't?
Well, I'm not, I say this publicly a lot. I want you to think about that scene in Jaws where Roy Schneider's on the back of the boat throwing chum in the water. That would be me. I want DeSantis and Trump to fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Now, I want that because I know, and a lot of my former conservative friends are like, well, why don't you love DeSantis? DeSantis is a guy who is terrible at this work. Trump still has a stranglehold over the Republican Party. I have to plan for the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that Donald Trump will be the nominee in the Republican Party once again. There are very few paths to get a Ron DeSantis or any other of these jokers in the field over the finish line in the primary. I mean, Trump has to be dead or in jail, and even in those cases, he still might win the primary. And Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, though, presents a great Lincoln Project opportunity messaging moment and a leverage moment, because the more they fight, the normal Republicans who are flocking back to Ron DeSantis in hopes of getting rid of Donald Trump, all those normies now have to face a really hard fact. The guy they thought was going to save them can't.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy they rejected and said, oh, Trump's too much, he's too extreme, he's too crazy, he tried to overthrow the government, he tried to murder Mike Pence, he ordered an attack on the Capitol, all those things that added up. And by the way, a lot of Republican women and independent leaning Republicans, the other thing that's driving them away from Trump and the Republican Party broadly is the Dobbs decision.
Right.
Because about 20 to 25% of Republican women are pro-choice, either mildly or somewhat or fully. About 15 to 18% of Republican men are pro-choice, mildly, somewhat, or fully. Those are real numbers inside the party. And they may be sick of Trump, but DeSantis actually presents a worse set of options for them. But if I can keep them fighting as long as humanly possible, if I can make it as bloody and painful and loud and noisy as possible, there's a way to split off more of those voters than we got off in 2020. We modeled, depending on the state, between 3 and 8% of Republicans in 2020. Given the current circumstances, our numbers are between 7 and 11% in these key states now. The pool has expanded because DeSantis is an insane authoritarian, because Republicans throughout the country are, even in conservative states, are going out way beyond what the voters are comfortable with, because Donald Trump is a continued grotesque, horrible reminder of how bad that 4-year period was every single day. We feel like there's a great opportunity here to make the Republican primary nasty and brutal and bloody and good for America.
Anything we can do to help, we're there. Just so you know, Rick, I think it's the greatest thing ever. I keep telling people I'm a New York Giants fan, and watching these guys fight is like watching the Patriots play the Cowboys. I'm just rooting for injuries. like I'm like, as many as possible. Bring out the cart, wheel people off. Oh, the quarterback got a broken leg. Oh, that's awful. That kind of stuff. Like, that's what I want. I don't literally want injuries, folks, but you know what I'm getting at. I want
got
them
you.
to inflict pain on each other as much as possible. And if we can play a role, look, if somehow DeSantis pulls us out from Trump, I don't know how, but things happen. Is there any doubt that Trump would try to just tear the party down going into November if he lost the nomination?
So we've been in the middle of doing a huge amount of survey work lately and a lot of polling.
Okay.
And this is something we studied. We went and dug in on Republican primary, highly likely Republican primary voters, not people who tell us they're likely, but who have a record of voting in Republican primaries at the 5 of 5 level. Now, those people are telling us, and those, by the way, that demo of voters, about 65% of them are with Trump right now.
They are. Okay.
Okay. About, and of that pool of voters, of that 65%, half of them say they won't vote for anyone other than Trump in the general election. Now, Donald Trump, as you know, is a guy who really loves to be gracious and fair and play for the team.
Right.
So I'm sure he's not going to go out and say something like, this election was stolen once again by the deep state, and Rondi Meatball and the Soros shill stole it from me, and the election was rigged, and I'm gonna, whatever he says.
Sure.
This is an inevitability of Trump. It's not a feature, or it's not a bug. It's a feature.
Sure.
He will do something shitty and terrible. He will do something awful to the party if he doesn't get what he wants. And I am here for it, Dean. I'm here for it all day long.
We are too. I mean, we know that too. And the big GOP donors and everything, they know that as well. Is there a sense from their point of view that if they want any chance of winning, they have to let DeSantis, they have to let Trump win, even if they lose this time? Because if somehow DeSantis gets the nomination, Trump might just destroy the party for a longer term.
They have a really terrible Hobson's choice here. Mm-hmm. You go with DeSantis, Trump gets pissed off, walks away, complains. His voters say that it was stolen from him. And look, in this country, given the electoral college structure, the voting numbers are so closely divided, so tightly wound down, that no side can afford to lose even 2 or 3%.
Right.
You can't have voters in the wind anymore in this world. The other flip is you pick Trump again, and you have Trump again. Joe Biden knows how to beat him. We sure as hell know how to beat him again. He's stronger in the Republican Party, but weaker in the general election than he was in 2020. And I will take that. I will take those odds all day long. I believe DeSantis is beatable in the general election. Also, harder assignment, much more difficult assignment.
I understand.
Only because the news media is also desperate to get away from Trump. They want to stop the Trump thing. They would love to have a horse race and a surprise, rising star, and they would love to play the Camelot, part 2 game and all this stuff. I get it. I understand all the motivations. I think they're crappy, but I understand them. But I think beating either one of them is doable. I think beating Trump is again, difficult, not easy, not going to be fun or easy. I'm never going to look, I'm taking a week off next week, but other than that, that's about the last vacation I'm looking for until about November of 2024.
Wow.
So, we got a lot of work to do, Dean. There's a big pile of to do all the time at the Lincoln Project. And I listen, I really wanted at the end of 2020, I told somebody this the other day, at the end of 2020, I really, really wanted to go write more books and watch my kids have grandkids. And, I've had a good life. I've had a great life. I'm 59 years old. I could have been happy. And then January 6th came along. And January 6th told every single one of us that beating Trump wasn't enough. The movement that's out there and the media infrastructure and the conspirators like Steve Bannon and Roger Stone and Alex Jones and all the crazies who want to tear this country down to the ground and burn it down to the ground, they're still out there. beating Trump is necessary, as they say, but not sufficient. So this time we're going to be focused not only on Trump, but and his enablers, but we're going to be focused also on how do you make this election so brutal, so humiliating, such a complete beatdown that they look at this thing and go, wow, putting on the red hat in 2028 seems like political poison. Doing what we're doing is political poison. Maybe we ought to take a look at the party, because look, there's nothing MAGA Republicans hate more. You think MAGA Republicans hate liberals and Democrats and progressives? Oh, no. They hate George Herbert Walker Bush Republicans and Mitt Romney Republicans and John McCain Republicans and Liz Cheney Republicans and Adam Kinzinger Republicans with an intensity that cannot be measured with scientific instruments. It is beyond all description.
The other thing, when you mentioned about Donald Trump, and you know this, and I know this from talking Democrats every night on my show, he's the greatest get the vote outer on our side. On our side, you don't have to demonize, like DeSantis, we're still trying to define to people, and now they're getting it. He's enacted laws in Florida that are horrific, right? But still, we were catching up. With Trump, you don't need any of that. People get it. And you get those clips of Trump going, I terminated Roe v. Wade, and I'm honored to do it. And I'm like, that's a great ad. We're going to see that all the time. I talk to young people who've never voted before in their life. They've gotten engaged since Roe was overturned because it affects them personally. It's not political, it's personal. And those ads against Trump on that issue are going to be devastating.
Listen, and I've said this a lot. As a former Republican, there was a consensus in this country on abortion that weirdly was between these two poles, where George Herbert Walker Bush said, I don't love abortion, but it should always be legal in the cases of rape, incest, or the life of the mother. And Bill Clinton, who said it should be safe and legal and rare. And that's sort of where America was. They didn't love it. Pro-choice people didn't love where things stood, and pro-life people didn't love where things stood, but America had reached a basic consensus on it. Nobody was happy, and it's okay in a democracy where nobody's really happy about something. The law had become, Roe had become, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, a part of the fabric of American society. When Dobbs came along and opened the door to these state restrictions, if the Republicans had just said, okay, we're going to move incrementally and slowly, we want to change a few things here and there could have been a public dialogue that would have had fewer consequences politically. They did not. They went right to the crazy. Criminalize doctors, put doctors in jail, put women in jail, ban Plan B, 6-week abortion bans, having to prove rape or incest with 2 separate doctors within days of the incident. All this bullshit that they've done has left even Republican voters and even some pro-life voters going, whoa, wait a minute. I spoke to an evangelical leader in the South, a very, very prominent evangelical leader who is unequivocally pro-life. But he said to me, he goes, when I hear about a 10-year-old girl being raped and they want her to carry a child, he said to me, you and I will disagree if a 17 or an 18-year-old woman gets pregnant. We'll disagree on that. I think it's none of the government's business, but anyway.
Right.
But he said, for a 10-year-old child, that's just cruelty. That's just cruelty. And that's part of the purpose here of these bans and of this craziness. And they are biting, the dog caught the car. They've bitten off this terrible, terrible political burden, and they don't even understand how bad it is yet. I kept wondering if the numbers would drop off after Dobbs. They're getting bigger, not smaller. The people who are pissed off about Dobbs are getting more numerous, not fewer, not less.
No, I just spoke to a high school class via Zoom the other day, and not about politics, more about activism. These people are about to be 18, the younger people, and the men, the teen guys and the women are upset about losing reproductive freedom because it affects the women directly, but the men too in a relationship or planning a family. They understand that, or if they have a sister or just an accident happens, and then you can't have an abortion, then you have to have a child, and it affects the woman's life directly, but also the man's life as well. This is so fundamentally politically wrong. But last question, Rick, and I'm chatting with Rick Wilson. For Democrats, look, there's polls recently, I know we're far from the election, that showed Trump beating Biden. And that's more about Biden's approval rating being stuck in like 42. The economy on paper is great. The lowest unemployment since 1969. Inflation has come down. It's not great, but it's come down. It's below 5% solidly now. You've got black unemployment, the lowest ever. Wages are going up. He has legislative accomplishments in the first term. I went through on my show yesterday to remind people, what is it that's holding him down? And what, because your book was to save America from Trump and Democrats from themselves. What would you recommend Democrats and Biden be doing now?
I have three top tier things.
Okay.
First off, the administration and every single Democrat in Congress needs to get on the victory train. They need to talk about the accomplishments they've achieved. They need to talk about inflation reduction, talk about the infrastructure bill. You had a conversation with a progressive recently who said, well, I didn't get this, and this in the infrastructure bill, so I'm not happy. I'm like, but you got $5 billion in your district or whatever it was, and you're not happy that you didn't get 7.2 or whatever
right.
Declare victory once in a while. Take a victory lap and say, we did a great job, and have everybody sing off the same sheet of music. Okay. It's what Republicans are best at. You grew up in the Republican politics and you learn two things: just win and stay on message. Everybody stays on message all the time. The Democrats have 57 messages. You get people complaining in the background, all this BS. The second thing is, I know a lot of progressives do not love Joe Biden. They wish they had another choice. They don't have another choice. Now it's time to say, no matter what you Republicans think, we're not going to let you divide us from Joe Biden. We're going to be all in. We're going to race to the finish line. We're going to run through the tape. We're going to work together at every step. No matter what we disagree on policy-wise, we are going to get to the victory point, because the alternative is not some moderate Republican squish or some, some average or normal person. It's not Mitt Romney. The alternative is a authoritarian tyrant who is willing to use the rule of law to punish his opponents politically.
Yep.
That is crazy. And so unifying behind Biden and having, like Nina Turner the other day was sniping about, oh, the DNC needs to do debates with Marianne Williamson and Joe Biden. Get the hell out of here. Shut up. Come on. Yeah. I know they're unhappy about some things, but this is a family feud. And there's a street gang trying to kick down the door to come in the house and kill everybody. And they're arguing about what kind of wallpaper to put up in the dining room. It's insane. And the third thing is Joe Biden has had some performances lately, State of the Union, White House Correspondence, the speech in Ireland, that were absolute rock star performances. And I think the White House has been very cautious about putting him out there. They're like, he's old, he's this, he's that. The guy is still spry. Okay. If I'm that spry when I'm 80, I'm going to be shocked because I have so much mileage, right? But God bless, I hope I am. The guy needs to be out there, because Joe Biden is still someone that Americans, when they're with him, they don't think he's a crazy. They don't think he's out on the edge of lunacy somewhere. They like Joe Biden when they talk to him. It was always a problem Republicans had not understanding during Obama and Biden in their two presidential runs. You couldn't make people afraid of Joe Biden. You just couldn't do it. Right. It was tough. So those are the three things I would do if I were on the Democratic, advising the Democrats. But the first one is take credit for some of these accomplishments, because they really are some significant and impressive.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's something we talked about with listeners last night. President Biden has some great accomplishments. And I also agree, I wish the White House, whatever's going on, or he himself, just get out there more. He is likable. He is empathy and compassion I've never seen more in my life. He moves me every time he talks. I'm like, this is what we want. So, well, Rick, thank you for spending time on the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, before your vacation. And I look forward to chat. I know you're going to be busy, but hopefully we'll squeeze
anytime, my friend, anytime. Good talking to you, Dean.
Take care, my friend.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Dean. See you guys.